I stood frozen in the middle of Bellevue's most expensive restaurant, cranberry juice dripping from my $3,000 Tom Ford suit onto the Italian marble floor. My 19-year-old niece, Amber, smirked at me with pure contempt. "Now you look as cheap as you really are," she said loud enough for every wealthy diner to hear. My mother actually clapped. My sister Diane watched with unmistakable pride glowing in her eyes. The entire dining room had gone silent, all eyes on my humiliation. But none of them knew this night would be the turning point. The laughter around me felt distant, muffled, like I was underwater. I excused myself and walked toward the bathroom, my leather shoes squelching with every step. The maitre d' looked mortified, already calling for cleaning staff. Behind me, I could hear my mother's voice carrying across the restaurant. "Oh, Tyrone's always been clumsy, even as a little boy." In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection. Crimson stains covered my white shirt, my silk tie, my jacket. $3,000 ruined. But that wasn't what hurt. What hurt was the look in Amber's eyes. That wasn't teenage rebellion or a simple accident. That was calculated cruelty. I need to back up. You need to understand how I got here. My name is Tyrone, and I just turned 35 today. This dinner was supposed to be a celebration, a chance to bring my family together. My father died 10 years ago, leaving me his auto parts business. Back then, it was 3 small locations barely making payroll. I worked 16-hour days, learned every aspect of the business, built relationships with suppliers, expanded our inventory, hired good people. Today, we have 18 locations across the state. I'm worth about $4 million. My older sister Diane took a different path. She married young to a man named Gerald, who's tried his hand at everything from real estate to day trading to cryptocurrency. Nothing ever works out for Gerald. They have 2 daughters, Amber and Crystal. Crystal's 16 and quiet. Amber's 19 and apparently learning cruelty from her parents. My mother, Patricia, has always favored Diane. Growing up, it was subtle. Diane got the bigger bedroom. Diane's achievements were celebrated loudly, while mine were acknowledged with a nod. When Dad died and left me the business, Mom actually seemed disappointed. She said I was too young and too ambitious, and that success would change me. She was right about one thing. Success did change me. It showed me who people really were. For years, my family made comments. Little digs. "Must be nice to afford that car, Mr. Big Shot. Remember where you came from, Tyrone. Money doesn't buy happiness, you know." I tried to ignore it. I thought if I stayed humble, stayed generous, they'd see I hadn't changed. I still helped Diane with her mortgage when Gerald's ventures failed. I paid for Amber's first year of college. I sent Mom on a cruise for her birthday. Tonight, I wanted to do something special. Bellevue is the finest restaurant in the city. Reservations take months. I booked the best table, told my family to order anything they wanted. I arrived early in my new Mercedes, wearing my best suit. I wanted them to be proud of me. They arrived 40 minutes late. Mom complained about parking. Diane made a joke about the chandelier probably costing more than her house. Gerald studied the menu and whistled at the prices. $75 for a steak? That's robbery. I smiled and told them not to worry about cost. This was my treat, my celebration. Amber barely looked at me when she sat down. She was texting, her face lit by her phone screen. Crystal seemed uncomfortable, kept glancing at her mother. The waiter brought champagne. I raised my glass for a toast. "To family," I said. Diane raised her glass without enthusiasm. "To family," she echoed, and something in her tone made my stomach tighten. The appetizers came. Amber ordered cranberry juice instead of champagne, said she didn't like the taste of alcohol. The waiter brought it in a tall crystal glass, filled to the brim with dark red liquid. What happened next, I've replayed in my mind 1,000 times. Amber reached across the table for the bread basket. Her elbow knocked the glass, but before it fell, I saw her eyes meet mine. She smiled. Then her hand followed through, making sure the glass tipped directly toward me. 300 milliliters of cranberry juice cascaded down my chest. Cold, sticky, staining everything it touched. The table gasped. Other diners turned to look. And Amber, my niece, the girl I'd helped put through college, looked at me with pure satisfaction and said, "Now you look as cheap as you really are." That's when Mom clapped. 3 slow claps, like I was a performer who'd just finished a disappointing act. Diane smiled, squeezed her daughter's shoulder with unmistakable pride. I stood there, dripping, humiliated, confused. Then I excused myself to the bathroom. Standing at the sink, trying to blot the stains with paper towels, my phone rang. Marcus, my accountant. I almost didn't answer. But Marcus never calls after hours unless it's urgent. Tyrone. I'm sorry to bother you, but we have a serious problem. My hands stopped moving. What kind of problem? I've been doing the quarterly review. There are irregularities in the accounts. Unauthorized transfers. It's been going on for about 18 months. The bathroom suddenly felt too small. How much? $375,000. I leaned against the sink. $375,000. Gone. Where did it go? Multiple transfers to an account listed as D. Patterson Consulting. Tyrone. Patterson is your mother's maiden name. The pieces clicked together. 18 months ago, my assistant Sarah had emergency surgery. I needed help with payroll, invoicing, basic administrative work. Diane offered. She'd worked in office management before having kids. I gave her temporary access to the company accounts. She never gave it back. Marcus, can you trace exactly where the money went? Working on it. But Tyrone, whoever did this, knew what they were doing. They created fake vendor accounts, consulting agreements, the works. This was planned. I thanked him and hung up. Looked at myself in the mirror. Cranberry juice dripped from my collar. But I wasn't seeing the stains anymore. I was seeing my sister's smile. My mother's satisfied clap. Amber's cruelty. This wasn't random. This wasn't just family resentment boiling over at dinner. They'd been stealing from me for a year and a half. And tonight was about making me look unstable. Making me look reckless and foolish. Discrediting me before I discovered the truth. I walked back to the table with new eyes. Looked at each of them. Diane wouldn't meet my gaze. Gerald was studying his phone. Mom was eating her salad, like nothing had happened. Amber whispered something to Crystal, and they both giggled. I sat down, picked up my napkin, dabbed at my ruined suit. "Everything okay?" Diane asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "Everything's fine," I said. And I smiled, because now I understood. This was war. And they'd just shown me they had no rules. I barely slept that night. At 7 in the morning, I was at my office. Marcus arrived at 7:30, with 2 banker's boxes full of printed statements. "It's worse than I thought," he said, spreading documents across my desk. "Look at this." The pattern was clear once you knew to look for it. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, money disappeared. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Always different amounts, always to different account names. But Marcus had traced them all. D. Patterson Consulting, Patterson Property Management, Patterson Advisory Services. All fake. All leading back to bank accounts owned by Diane and Gerald. "How did I not see this?" I asked. Marcus shook his head. They were smart. Kept individual transactions small enough not to trigger automatic alerts. Spread them across different departments so no single manager would notice. Mix them in with legitimate vendor payments. Tyrone. This took planning. This took skill. We spent 3 hours going through everything. The total was actually higher than Marcus's initial estimate. $512,000 over 19 months. They'd stolen over $500,000 from me. But the money trail told another story too. They'd spent it fast. A new house for $260,000. 2 cars. Amber's college tuition paid in full. A boat. Vacation to Europe. Designer clothes. They were living large on my money. "What do you want to do?" Marcus asked. I thought about calling the police, but Diane was still my sister. Mom was still my mother. Despite everything, I wanted to give them a chance to make it right. Set up a family meeting. Tonight. My house. Tell them it's urgent. Marcus looked doubtful. You sure that's wise? They're family. I have to try. That evening, they arrived at my house in separate cars. Gerald came in first, his jaw tight. Diane followed, Mom behind her. Amber stayed in the car. Crystal came inside but wouldn't look at me. I'd set up my laptop on the dining room table. Had all the evidence ready. Bank statements, transfer records, timeline. Thanks for coming, I started. I need to talk to you about something serious. This better be important, Gerald said. We had plans. I turned the laptop to face them. 19 months ago, I gave Diane access to the company accounts. Since then, over $500,000 has been transferred out to fake consulting companies. All of them trace back to you. The room went silent. I watched their faces. Diane's went pale. Gerald's face turned red. Mom looked confused, then angry. This is ridiculous, Diane said finally. Are you accusing me of stealing? I'm giving you a chance to explain. Explain? You invite us here to insult us? Her voice rose. How dare you? Diane, I have the bank records. The account numbers. Everything. Gerald stood up. You know what this is? This is jealousy. You've always been jealous that Diane and I have a real marriage, a real family. You're alone, Tyrone. Alone with your money. And now you're so paranoid. You're making up fantasies about us stealing from you. It's not a fantasy. Marcus has verified every transaction. Mom stood up too. Your father would be ashamed of you. Accusing your own sister like this. What's happened to you? What's happened to me? You've been stealing from me for over a year. We haven't stolen anything, Diane shouted. And if you keep making these accusations, you'll regret it. We'll sue you for slander. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. That's when I noticed Amber had come inside. She was standing in the doorway, her phone pointed at me, recording. Amber, put the phone away, I said. She smiled. The same smile from the restaurant. This is crazy, Uncle Tyrone, everyone. Making up stories about my mom. I'm not making anything up. You're unstable, Gerald said. Look at you. You're shaking. You're sweating. You need help, Tyrone. They walked out, all of them. Mom paused at the door. Get help, son, please. Before you hurt yourself or someone else. The door slammed. I stood in my dining room, surrounded by evidence they didn't even try to deny, and realized they were better at this game than I'd thought. The next morning, a sheriff's deputy came to my office. He handed me papers. An emergency restraining order. Diane had filed it at 8 in the morning, claiming I'd shown up at her house the night before making violent threats. She feared for her safety and her children's safety. Sir, did you go to her residence last night? The deputy asked. She came to my house. I have security camera footage. Well, that's something you can bring to court. For now, you need to stay 500 feet away from her, her home, her children, and your mother who lives with her. Violation means arrest. He left. I called my attorney, a woman named Helen Rodriguez. She reviewed the paperwork. This is thin, she said. But they got an emergency order based on her testimony and some video. What video? According to the filing, her daughter recorded you making threats. Amber's video. The one from my own dining room. Helen, I was in my own house. They came to me. I have my own security footage. Good. Save it. We have a hearing in 5 days. We'll get this dismissed. But the damage was already spreading. That afternoon, a reporter from the local news called. Someone had tipped them about the restraining order. Care to comment on allegations you threatened your family? I declined. But the story ran anyway. Local businessman faces restraining order from sister. They used my company name. My photo from the business website. Mentioned the 18 locations. My business partners started calling. What's going on, Tyrone? Is everything okay? Should we be concerned? I spent the afternoon doing damage control, explaining the situation, showing the evidence of theft. Most people were supportive, but I could hear the doubt in their voices. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? That evening, Mom left a voicemail. Her voice was cold. You've broken this family. Your father built that business for all of us, not just you. I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope your money keeps you warm at night, because you don't have anyone else. I listened to it 3 times. Then I saved it, because I was starting to realize I'd need evidence of everything. Helen prepared aggressively for the restraining order hearing. She had my security footage showing the family meeting at my house, not Diane's. She had character witnesses from the business community. She had Marcus ready to testify about the financial irregularities. The video Diane submitted has clearly been edited, Helen explained. We can show the cuts, the missing context. The judge will see through this. I wanted to believe her. The hearing was on a Thursday morning. I wore a conservative suit, dark blue, professional. When I walked into the courtroom, Diane was already there with her lawyer, a man named Richard Corbin, who wore a suit more expensive than mine. Corbin had a reputation. He specialized in family law, and he won cases. Mom sat behind Diane. So did both girls, Amber and Crystal. They dressed carefully. Diane in a modest dress, looking afraid. Mom in her church clothes. The girls in simple outfits, no makeup. They looked like victims. Gerald sat separately, in jeans and a button-down, trying to look like a working-class family man. Judge Warren presided. She was in her 60s, stern, known for no-nonsense rulings. Corbin went first. He painted a picture of a man spiraling out of control. Tyrone, successful but isolated, unmarried, no children, obsessed with his business, recently becoming paranoid, making wild accusations. The stress of running multiple locations finally catching up to him. Your Honor, my client lives in fear. Mr. Anderson showed up at her home, making accusations of theft, shouting, pounding his fist on her table. Her daughters witnessed this. They're traumatized. Then he played Amber's video. But it had been edited, cut to show only the moments when my voice was raised, only the moments that made me look aggressive. My calm explanations were gone. The evidence I'd shown them was gone. Just my anger, my frustration, out of context. Your Honor, Mr. Anderson's business is also facing difficulties. Multiple locations are under investigation for safety violations. His investors are concerned. This is a man under extreme stress, lashing out at family members he believes have somehow wronged him. That's when my blood went cold. Safety violations? What was he talking about? Helen stood up. Objection. There are no safety violations. This is the first we're hearing of this. Corbin smiled. Actually, as of this morning, Mr. Anderson's flagship location has been shut down by OSHA, pending investigation of serious safety concerns. It's a matter of public record. Helen looked at me. I looked at my phone. 7 missed calls from Brandon, my head manager. 3 voicemails. I'd silenced my phone for court. Helen recovered quickly. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Anderson was actually the victim here. He has documentation of financial theft by his sister and brother-in-law. His security footage shows the meeting happened at his home, not hers. The edited video presented by opposing counsel is misleading. She played my security footage. The whole thing. 17 minutes of me calmly presenting evidence, them getting defensive, them leaving. No threats, no violence. Then Crystal took the stand. She was shaking. Corbin guided her gently. Crystal, tell the court what happened at Thanksgiving. Uncle Tyrone came over. He was acting strange. He kept staring at Mom. He cornered me in the kitchen and asked me weird questions about family finances. He scared me. It was a complete lie. I'd been in Florida at a business conference at Thanksgiving. I had dated receipts, plane tickets, hotel records. Helen cross-examined. Crystal, you said this was at Thanksgiving? Yes. Your Uncle Tyrone was in Orlando at a conference. We have records. Crystal's eyes filled with tears. Maybe it was Christmas. I get confused. Were you coached to say this? No. He scares me. I don't feel safe. More tears. The judge softened. Helen presented our evidence. Marcus testified about the theft. Helen showed the bank records. It was all there, clear as day. Over $500,000 missing. Judge Warren studied the documents. This is concerning. But Mr. Corbin is correct that this is a civil matter, not appropriate for a restraining order hearing. If Mr. Corbin, Anderson believes theft has occurred, he should pursue it through proper channels. Your Honor, that's what he's trying to do, Helen argued. But they're using this restraining order to prevent him from gathering evidence and, Miss Rodriguez, I've made my decision. The permanent restraining order is denied. However, I'm going to issue a strong warning to Mr. Anderson. The courts are not the place to air family financial disputes. If you believe a crime has been committed, contact the police. Do not attempt to handle this yourself. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Your Honor. And Mr. Anderson, I suggest you seek some counseling. The stress of running a business, family conflicts, these things can take a toll. Make sure you're taking care of your mental health. We were dismissed. Helen patted my shoulder. We won. The restraining order's gone, but I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like I'd been scolded. And the judge's comment about my mental health would be in the public record now. More ammunition for them. I rushed out of the courthouse and called Brandon. Tyrone, thank God. Where have you been? Court. What happened? OSHA showed up at 6 this morning. Anonymous tip about safety violations. When they got here, they found removed emergency exits, disabled fire suppression, hazardous materials stored improperly. Tyrone. None of that was like that yesterday. Someone did this overnight. Did you check the security cameras? That's the thing. Footage from last night is corrupted. System says it recorded, but the files are blank. Whoever did this knew our system. Where's Gerald? Silence. Then, I saw someone who looked like him in the parking lot around 11 last night. I was working late on inventory. Didn't think much of it then. My flagship location generated about $50,000 a day in revenue. It employed 38 people. And now it was dark, locked, shut down by the state. I drove there straight from court. Yellow tape across the doors. Posted notices about violations. My employees standing in the parking lot, confused and worried. Are we still getting paid? Someone asked. Yes. Everyone stays on payroll. This is temporary. But I could see the doubt in their eyes. This was the second public crisis in a week. First the restraining order, now this. My phone was ringing. News outlets. Mr. Anderson, care to comment on the safety violations at your business? By evening, it was everywhere. Safety violations force closure of Anderson Auto Parts. The coverage made it sound like I'd been cutting corners, risking employees, all to maximize profit. No mention that it was sabotage. No mention that the violations appeared overnight. My biggest investor, a man named Thomas Peterson, called. Tyrone, we need to meet. Tomorrow morning. This is serious. That night, I sat in my dark office. Brandon had forwarded me photos from inside the building. Someone had systematically removed safety equipment, pulled fire extinguishers off walls, disabled sprinkler systems, stored paint thinner and motor oil in ways that violated every code. It would have taken hours. They'd known exactly what to do. My email dinged. A message from Jasmine, my girlfriend. We'd been together 8 months. She was a teacher, kind, grounded, one of the few people who knew me before the money. Tyrone, I saw the news again. My parents are asking questions. I think we need to talk. Can you come over tomorrow? The message was polite, but cold. I could read between the lines. I typed a response, deleted it, tried again. Finally just wrote, sure. What time? She didn't respond. The meeting with Thomas Peterson and the other investors was brutal. They gathered in the conference room of their downtown office. 5 men in expensive suits, looking at me like I was a liability. Thomas spoke first. "Tyrone, you've built something impressive. We've been proud to be part of it, but the last week has been concerning." "It's all manufactured," I said. "My family is trying to destroy me because I caught them stealing." "We understand that's your position," another investor said. His name was Paul Hendricks, and his tone was skeptical. "But from the outside, it looks like instability, family drama, becoming public, safety violations. We have a fiduciary responsibility." The safety violations were sabotage. My head manager saw my brother-in-law in the parking lot the night before the inspection. "Can you prove it?" "The security footage was corrupted." Silence. Thomas sighed. "Tyrone, we're not forcing you out, but we need you to step back from day to day, operations temporarily. Let your managers run things. Keep a lower profile while this gets sorted out." "You want me to step back from my own company?" "We want the company protected. Your name is on every news story. Your face is associated with this mess. Let things cool down. Take a month. Get your personal situation handled. Then come back." It wasn't a request. It was an ultimatum. I looked at their faces. Men who'd believed in me, who'd invested millions, now looking at me with doubt. "Fine. 1 month." I left the meeting feeling hollowed out. My phone rang immediately. "Brandon, 2 more locations got surprise health inspections this morning. Anonymous complaints. The inspectors aren't finding violations, but it's disrupting business. Customers are spooked. Employees are worried. It's them. They're filing false complaints everywhere." "I know. But Tyrone, some employees are getting nervous. Jake from the Riverside location got an offer from Precision Auto. Better pay. He's thinking about taking it." Jake was one of my best parts specialists. 12 years with the company. If he left, others would follow. "Give him a raise, 20%. Whatever it takes to keep him." "Tyrone, we can't raise everyone's salary 20%. The margins won't support it." He was right. I was bleeding money from every direction. Legal fees, lost revenue from the shutdown. Now retention bonuses. The $4 million net worth that seemed so solid 6 months ago was feeling fragile. That evening, I drove to Jasmine's apartment. She lived in a modest complex near her school. We'd met at a charity fundraiser. She didn't care about my money, or so I'd thought. She opened the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt. No hug, no kiss. Just, "Come in." We sat on her couch. The same couch where we'd watched movies, laughed, talked about the future. Now it felt like a barrier between us. "My parents saw the news," she said. "They're worried. They're asking if you're stable." "I'm stable. My family is trying to destroy me. There's a difference. Tyrone, you have a restraining order." "Had. It was dismissed. You have safety violations at your business, which were sabotage. You're accusing your family of major crimes because they committed them." My voice had risen. She flinched. I immediately softened. "I'm sorry. This is just a lot." She twisted her hands together. My principal called me into her office, asked if everything was okay. Said some parents were concerned that I was dating someone with legal troubles. "Tyrone, my job is my life. I worked so hard to get this position. What are you saying?" "I think we need to take a break. Just until things calm down." A break. The universal code for a breakup without the courage to say it plainly. "Jasmine, I need you right now. I need someone who believes in me." "I do believe in you, but I can't be dragged into this. I'm sorry." I left without another word. Sat in my car in her parking lot for 20 minutes. Another loss. Another piece of my life pulled away. My phone buzzed. Email from Marcus. "Tyrone, the forensic accountant, finished the deep dive. The theft is worse than we thought. They also took out business credit cards in the company name and ran up $200,000 in charges. It's technically the company's debt, but you're personally liable. We need to report this to the FBI. This is wire fraud. Federal crimes. I drove home in a daze. My house felt empty. Too big. Too quiet. Every room echoed. The news that night led with my story again. Anderson Auto Parts faces multiple investigations. Questions mount about business practices and leadership. They interviewed a former employee who'd been fired for stealing supplies. He claimed I was a tyrant and a micromanager. Never mind that we'd caught him red-handed. His accusations were presented as credible. That week, I lost 3 major contracts. One from a school district worth $400,000 annually. They sent a formal letter. Due to the ongoing controversies surrounding your company, we've decided to seek alternative vendors. My business was hemorrhaging. $50,000 a day from the flagship closure. Another $20,000 in lost productivity from constant inspections and employee anxiety. Legal fees mounting. And now, $200,000 in fraudulent credit card debt I'd have to pay. I scheduled a meeting with Helen to discuss criminal charges. We needed to move fast. But then, on Friday afternoon, a courier delivered a certified letter. I signed for it and opened it standing in my driveway. The law firm was Barrett and Associates. High-powered, expensive. They represented Patricia Anderson and Diane Patterson. The letter informed me that their clients were filing a lawsuit for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They were seeking $2 million in damages for my baseless accusations and malicious persecution of innocent family members. The letter detailed how my accusations had caused them suffering. Diane had developed anxiety. Mom couldn't sleep. Amber was seeing a therapist. All my fault. But that wasn't the worst part. The letter's final paragraph made my hands shake. They were petitioning the court to have me declared mentally incompetent. They would argue that my paranoid behavior, my baseless accusations, my inability to maintain personal relationships, all pointed to someone incapable of managing his own affairs. They wanted Patricia appointed as conservator of my estate for my own protection. They wanted to take everything, the business, the money, all of it. And if they succeeded, there would be nothing I could do to stop them. Helen read the petition with her jaw clenched. This is aggressive. This is scorched earth. Can they actually do this? It's difficult, but not impossible. They'd need to prove you're incapable of managing your own affairs, that you're a danger to yourself or others. Given the recent publicity, the restraining order hearing, even though you won, the business troubles, a judge might at least hold a hearing. So what do? We fight. We document everything. Your mental competence, your business acumen. We show this is a money grab, not concern for your welfare. But Tyrone, we also need to go on offense. File criminal charges. Now. I called Marcus. Set up a meeting with an FBI agent for the following Monday. Wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, federal charges that carried serious prison time. I spent the weekend preparing, gathering every document, every bank record, every piece of evidence. If they wanted war, I'd give them war. Sunday evening, Jasmine called. For a moment, I felt relief. Maybe she'd reconsidered. Tyrone, I need to tell you something. Her voice was strange, tight. Okay, your sister contacted me a few days ago. My stomach dropped. What? She said she was worried about you. Said you'd been acting erratically. She asked if I'd noticed any concerning behavior. Mood swings, paranoia, irrational decisions. And what did you say? Silence. Then, I told her you'd been under a lot of stress, that the business troubles were affecting you, that sometimes you seemed really anxious. Jasmine, she asked me to write it down, make a statement, for the conservatorship hearing. She said it would help you, that you need professional help, and this was the only way to make sure you got it. My mouth was dry. Did you write it? Another pause. Longer this time. She offered to pay off my student loans, $68,000. Said she had money set aside for family emergencies. Said helping you was an emergency. Tell me you didn't. I already signed the affidavit. I'm sorry. I know things ended badly between us, but I thought I was helping. She seemed so concerned, so genuine. I hung up without responding. Sat on my couch in the darkness. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd trusted with my fears and vulnerabilities, had just sold me out for the price of her student debt, with money they'd stolen from me. My phone rang again. Brandon, Tyrone, we have a problem. What now? You know Sarah's nephew, Kevin? The kid we hired for the warehouse last month? Yeah, he just quit. But before he left, he told me something. Someone approached him, offered him $10,000 to testify that you've been behaving strangely at work, missing meetings, making irrational decisions, flying off the handle at employees. Who approached him? He wouldn't say, but he described a middle-aged guy with a goatee. That sound like anyone? Gerald. They were buying witnesses, fabricating testimony, building a case piece by piece. Did Kevin take the money? No. He's a good kid. He told me and quit because he didn't want to be involved. But Tyrone, if they approached him, they're approaching others. Monday morning, I met with FBI Special Agent Maria Santos. She was in her 40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. I liked her immediately. I laid out everything. The theft, the fake vendor accounts, the timeline, the evidence. She listened, took notes, asked clarifying questions. This is substantial, she said finally. Wire fraud across state lines. If your evidence holds up, this is a solid federal case. How long until you can arrest them? Don't get ahead of yourself. I need to verify everything. Interview witnesses. Coordinate with Financial Crimes Unit. This could take weeks. I don't have weeks. They're trying to get me declared incompetent in 5 days. She looked sympathetic but firm. I understand the urgency. But federal investigations take time. We do things right, or defense attorneys tear us apart in court. I'll move as fast as I can. I left feeling frustrated. The system moved slowly. My family moved fast. That week was a blur of attorney meetings, depositions, preparations. Helen had her own investigator digging into Diane and Gerald's finances. What he found was illuminating. They were drowning in debt. The house they'd bought was mortgaged to the hilt. The cars were leased with payments they couldn't afford. They owed back taxes, owed credit cards. Gerald had gambling debts, serious ones, to people who didn't accept late payments. They'd stolen my money, spent it all, and needed more. The conservatorship wasn't just about revenge, it was survival. If they controlled my assets, they could drain everything before anyone stopped them. Wednesday night, Brandon called again. His voice was shaking. Tyrone, you need to hear this. I just got a call from Amber. What? She wanted to meet. Said it was urgent. We met at a coffee shop. Tyrone, she's scared. She wants to tell you the truth. My heart hammered. What truth? All of it. The plan, the sabotage, everything. She feels guilty. She wants to wear a wire and get her mom and Gerald on tape admitting what they did. This was too good to be true. Why would she do that? She overheard Gerald talking last night. He was on the phone with someone. Said if the conservatorship doesn't work, he knows people who can make the problem disappear permanently. Tyrone, I think he was talking about hurting you. Amber's terrified. She doesn't want to be part of this anymore. I met Amber the next morning at a park. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Nothing like the smirking girl who'd poured cranberry juice on me. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I'm so sorry. Mom made it sound like you deserved it, like you'd stolen from us. I didn't understand what was really happening. Tell me everything. She did. Gerald had gambling debts. $200,000 to a bookie connected to some dangerous people. He'd been stealing from me to pay it off, but it wasn't enough. The interest kept growing. He convinced Diane this was their only option. Mom went along because she'd always resented my success. They planned it carefully. Steal the money, discredit me publicly, Get conservatorship. Drain my accounts. Disappear. What about last night? What did you hear? She pulled out her phone. Played a recording. Gerald's voice, muffled but clear enough. If the conservatorship falls through, I've got a backup plan. I know guys from my old neighborhood. 20 grand, and the problem goes away. Nobody would even suspect. My blood went cold. Amber, would you testify? Yes, but I want protection. I'm scared of what Gerald might do if he finds out. I called Agent Santos immediately. She arranged for Amber to wear a wire. That evening, Amber went to dinner at Diane's house. The FBI listened from a van 2 blocks away. I sat in Agent Santos's office, wearing headphones, hearing everything in real time. Amber did perfectly. She brought up the business, asked casual questions. Gerald, emboldened by whiskey, started bragging. The OSHA thing was genius. I knew their system codes from when Diane worked there. Got in, trashed the safety equipment, walked out. They'll never prove it was me. Diane laughed. The look on Tyrone's face in court. God, that was satisfying. What about the conservatorship? Amber asked. You really think it'll work? It's working already, Diane said. Jasmine signed the affidavit. We've got 3 employees lined up to testify he's unstable. His business is falling apart. The judge will have to rule in our favor. And if she doesn't? Amber pressed. Silence. Then Gerald. Lower now. Then we go to Plan B. I've already made some calls. There's people who handle these situations. 50 grand, total. Staged accident. Nobody asks question. Mom's voice. Quiet but clear. Gerald, you're not serious. I'm dead serious, Patricia. You want to keep living with your daughter in that tiny house? You want Amber to drop out of school? We're too deep in now. It's him or us. What about the theft? Amber asked. Won't the FBI investigate? Let them investigate. By the time they sort out the paperwork, we'll have the conservatorship. We'll move the money offshore. We'll be gone. It was all there. Confession, conspiracy, threats, everything. Agent Santos gave the signal. FBI agents entered the house. Gerald and Diane were arrested at their own dinner table. Mom was questioned, but not arrested immediately. Amber went into protective custody. That night, the news broke. Local family members arrested in elaborate fraud scheme. My phone exploded. Business partners, employees, reporters. Everyone who doubted me now, calling to apologize. The conservatorship hearing was canceled. The defamation lawsuit withdrawn. The restraining order threats disappeared. I'd won. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. 3 days after the arrests, I returned to my office. Employees greeted me with applause. My head manager Brandon had tears in his eyes. We knew you were telling the truth, he said. We never doubted you. The flagship location reopened after OSHA cleared it. The investigation confirmed sabotage. All violations were artificial. My business licenses were restored. The negative press coverage turned positive. Businessmen vindicated, after family conspiracy exposed. Contracts that had been canceled were reinstated. The school district sent an apologetic letter and renewed their agreement. Investors called with congratulations. Thomas Peterson took me to lunch. Tyrone, I should have trusted you more. That kind of loyalty to family, even when they didn't deserve it, that says something about your character. The FBI's case moved forward rapidly with Amber's cooperation. She provided details about every aspect of the conspiracy, where the money went, how they'd planned each step, the fake vendor accounts, the sabotage, all of it. Gerald's gambling debts were real. The people he owed were real, and they weren't happy about losing their collection target. Gerald started cooperating with federal prosecutors, giving them information about the bookie operation in exchange for a reduced sentence. Diane tried to fight the charges, but the evidence was overwhelming. Her lawyer, the expensive Richard Corbin, withdrew from the case when she couldn't pay his retainer. She ended up with a public defender. Mom called me from her lawyer's office. She'd been charged as an accessory. Her voice was small. defeated. Tyrone, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I didn't respond immediately. Let the silence stretch. You stood there and clapped when Amber humiliated me. You called me paranoid. You tried to have me declared incompetent. Sorry doesn't cover it, Mom. I know. Your father would be ashamed of me. Yeah? He would. She hung up. Crystal, the younger daughter, reached out through a lawyer. She wanted me to know she'd been forced to lie in court. She was 16. Her mother had coached her, threatened her. She didn't want to be part of it. I believed her. Crystal had always been quieter, kinder. She was another victim in this. The legal proceedings moved forward. Gerald faced 8 to 12 years. Diane faced 6 to 8. Mom would likely get probation if she cooperated fully. The conservatorship attempt had failed spectacularly. Instead of gaining control of my assets, they'd lost everything. Their house went into foreclosure. The cars were repossessed. Every asset they'd bought with my stolen money was seized by the court. Restitution was ordered. $512,000 plus interest and penalties. Everything they owned wasn't enough to cover it. But I wasn't interested in taking their furniture and clothes. I worked with the court to structure a payment plan. Diane and Gerald would be paying me back for the rest of their lives, a little at a time. I wanted them to remember every month, every payment, what their greed had cost them. Jasmine tried to reach out. Multiple calls. Text messages. Finally, a letter. Tyrone, I made a terrible mistake. I see that now. I was manipulated. I believed Diane when she said she was trying to help you. I didn't understand what was really happening. Can we talk? Can we try again? I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. She'd chosen $68,000 over believing in me. She'd signed a legal document calling me mentally unstable. No amount of apologies could undo that. 6 months after the arrests, the criminal trials concluded. Gerald took a plea deal. 8 years in federal prison. He'd be 56 when he got out. His gambling associates had been arrested too, thanks to his cooperation. He'd probably need witness protection when he was released. Diane fought longer but eventually accepted a plea deal. 4 years. She cried during sentencing. Apologized to the judge. Claimed she'd been pressured by Gerald. The judge wasn't moved. Mrs. Patterson, you made choices. You chose to steal from your brother. You chose to create false evidence. You chose to try to destroy his reputation and his business. Those were your choices. No one forced you. Mom got 3 years probation, 600 hours of community service, and was ordered to testify fully in any related proceedings. She moved to a small apartment across town. We hadn't spoken since that phone call. The business recovered fully. Better than before, actually. The publicity, once the truth came out, brought a wave of support. People respected that I'd stood my ground, that I'd proven my innocence. New contracts came in. We expanded to 2 more locations. Company value hit $6 million. One evening, Brandon mentioned he'd seen Amber. She was working 2 jobs now, putting herself through community college. She'd cut all ties with her mother. Every few weeks, she'd call Brandon to ask how I was doing. She never called me directly. Too ashamed. I thought about that. About a 19-year-old kid who'd been raised by people who taught her that cruelty was acceptable, who'd participated in something terrible, but who'd ultimately done the right thing, even when it was hard. I called her. She answered on the first ring. Uncle Tyrone? Yeah. Brandon said you're working 2 jobs. I have to. I need to pay my own way now. How's school? It's okay. I'm studying business administration. Ironic, right? Amber, what you did, wearing that wire. That took courage. She was quiet for a moment. It was the least I could do. I was horrible to you. That night at the restaurant, the cranberry juice, I knew exactly what I was doing. I was cruel. I'm so ashamed. You were 19. You believed what they told you. That's not an excuse. No, But it's context. You made a mistake. Then you corrected it. That matters. Does it? Sometimes I think about how much damage we did. Your business, your reputation, your girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, and that one might have been a blessing. Better to know now than later. She laughed. A small sound. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think you'll ever forgive Mom? Or Grandma? I looked out my office window at the parking lot. My employees heading home after a good day's work. The business my father built, that I'd grown, that had survived a coordinated attack by my own family. I don't know. Forgiveness isn't something you decide. It's something that happens, or doesn't. Right now, I'm focused on moving forward. That's fair. We talked for another 20 minutes. About her classes, her jobs, her younger sister Crystal, who was doing well in a new school. Before we hung up, I made her promise to send me her tuition bills. She tried to refuse, but I insisted. You did the right thing when it counted most. That deserves recognition. 2 weeks later, I went back to Bellevue, the restaurant where it all started. I'd avoided it for months. But it was time. I called ahead, reserved the same table, brought Brandon and Amber. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. Mr. Anderson, welcome back. We're honored to have you. He sent champagne to the table, on the house. Said he'd read about everything in the news. Said the entire staff had been rooting for me. We ordered dinner. Expensive steaks. Good wine. Amber looked uncomfortable in the fancy setting, but I told her to relax. This was celebration. To second chances, I said, raising my glass. To the truth, Brandon added. Amber just smiled and drank. Halfway through the meal, a waiter brought another bottle of champagne. From the gentleman at table 12. I looked over. A man in his 70s, distinguished, dining alone. He raised his glass to me. I raised mine back. The waiter leaned in. He said to tell you he followed your story. Said it reminded him of his own family troubles years ago. He wanted you to know that surviving family betrayal makes you stronger than you can imagine. I didn't know the man. Would probably never see him again. But something about that gesture, that acknowledgement, hit me harder than I expected. We finished dinner, paid the bill, left a generous tip. As we walked out, I paused at the spot where cranberry juice had stained the marble floor 6 months ago. It was clean now. No trace of what had happened. You okay? Brandon asked. Yeah, I said. I really am. 3 months later, the story reached its final chapter. Gerald was in federal prison in Pennsylvania. Diane was in a minimum security facility in Ohio. Mom had completed 200 hours of her community service and was working part-time at a grocery store. Crystal graduated high school. I sent her flowers and a card. She called me, crying with gratitude. Said she wanted to go to college, but didn't know how she'd afford it. I set up a scholarship fund in my father's name. Crystal was the first recipient. She's studying to be a teacher now. Amber finished her associate degree and transferred to a 4-year university. She works part-time at one of my locations, in accounting. She wanted to learn the business properly, wanted to understand what her mother had almost destroyed. We have coffee sometimes, talk about her goals. Our relationship is healing slowly, carefully. Jasmine sent one more letter. This time, I responded, not to rekindle anything, but to close that chapter properly. I wrote, "You made a choice based on money. I understand it, but I can't be with someone who did that. I hope your career goes well. I hope you find happiness, but you won't find it with me." She never wrote back. The business continued growing. We opened 2 more locations, hired 60 new employees. Company value hit $7 million. But more importantly, the culture changed. I'd learned something through all of this. Success isn't just about profit. It's about people. About surrounding yourself with individuals who share your values, who will stand with you when everything falls apart. Brandon became my VP of operations. He'd earned it. Amber isn't just an employee, she's learning to become a leader. I'm teaching her everything I know. Maybe someday she'll run her own business. Maybe she'll do it better than I did. I started dating again. Met a woman named Rachel at a charity event. She's a nurse, grounded, real. When I told her my story, she didn't run. She listened. She understood that family can be complicated. That betrayal shapes you but doesn't have to define you. We've been together 4 months now, taking it slow, building something real. One Sunday, I visited my father's grave, stood there in the quiet of the cemetery, looking at his headstone. Dad, I know you're probably disappointed in how everything went down with Mom and Diane, but I protected what you built. I stood up for what was right. I think you'd be proud of that. The wind rustled through the trees. I chose to take that as agreement. What I learned through all of this could fill a book. But here are the essentials. Success reveals people's true character. When you have nothing, everyone's kind. When you have something, you learn who's really on your side and who's just waiting for their chance. Family doesn't mean blind loyalty. Real family supports you. Real family celebrates your success instead of resenting it. Blood relation doesn't obligate you to accept abuse or betrayal. Greed transforms people into strangers. My sister wasn't always cruel. My mother wasn't always cold. But desperation and entitlement turned them into people I didn't recognize. Gerald's gambling addiction created a crisis. Instead of facing it honestly, they chose to destroy me. That was their decision, not mine. Standing alone is hard, but standing for truth is harder. There were moments I wanted to give up. Moments I wanted to just hand them money and make it stop. But that would have made me complicit in my own destruction. Sometimes you have to fight, even when it costs you everything. The legal system is slow, but it works. If you have evidence and patience, truth eventually surfaces. Document everything. Keep records. Build your case methodically. Justice delayed isn't always justice denied. Betrayal from loved ones cuts deepest. Jasmine's choice hurt more than my sister's theft, because I'd loved Jasmine. I'd trusted her with my vulnerabilities. She chose money over me. That's a pain that lingers. But it also taught me to be more careful with my trust, to build relationships slowly, to watch actions instead of believing words. Forgiveness is personal, not obligatory. People kept asking if I'd forgiven my family. The answer is complicated. I don't hate them anymore. Hate requires energy. I'd rather spend elsewhere. But forgiveness? That's something I'm still working toward. Maybe I'll get there. Maybe I won't. Either way, it's my choice, not something I owe them. Your father's legacy isn't just what he leaves you. It's the values he teaches you. Dad left me a business, yes. But more importantly, he taught me integrity. Taught me that honest work builds something real, that shortcuts lead to empty victories. His letter, the one I found that lowest night, reminded me who I was. That was worth more than the business. Success without integrity is just wealth, and wealth without character is meaningless. I could have cut corners, could have hired cheaper employees, could have ignored safety regulations like they accused me of doing. But I didn't. Because at the end of the day, you have to sleep with yourself. Money's great, but self-respect is irreplaceable. The people who stand by you in crisis are your real family. Brandon never doubted me. Amber found her courage. Marcus worked weekends to build the case. Helen fought like my life depended on it. That's family. Not the people who share your DNA. The people who share your values. 1 year after that night at Bellevue, I threw myself a party. 36th birthday. Rented out the same restaurant. Invited everyone who'd stood by me. Brandon, Marcus, Helen, Amber, Crystal, Rachel, my loyal employees, the investors who'd ultimately trusted me. I stood up to make a toast. Looked around at faces of people who mattered. A year ago, in this room, I learned what betrayal feels like. What it's like to be humiliated by people who should love you. But I also learned something more important. I learned who I am when everything's falling apart. And I learned who's really worth having in my life. I raised my glass. To second chances. To truth. To the people who stand with you when standing alone would be easier. Thank you for being my real family. The room erupted in applause. Amber was crying. Rachel squeezed my hand. Later, as people were leaving, Amber pulled me aside. Uncle Tyrone, thank you for giving me a chance. I didn't deserve it. You earned it by telling the truth. That's all anyone can do. Make mistakes. Own them. Do better. She hugged me. Really hugged me. Like family should. I went home that night to my big, empty house. But it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt peaceful. I'd survived a war with my own blood. I'd lost people I thought I couldn't live without. But I'd found something more valuable. I'd found myself. The next morning, I drove to the office. Parked in my usual spot. Walked through doors with my name on them. Greeted employees who respected me. Sat at a desk my father once sat at. And I realized something profound. That cranberry juice incident wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was the best, because it forced everything into the light. It showed me who I was and who they were. It tested me in ways I never imagined. And I passed. Some nights, I still think about that moment. Standing in Bellevue, juice dripping down my suit, my family laughing at my humiliation. If I could go back, would I change it? Would I avoid that dinner? Handle things differently? No, because that moment led to this one. Led to a life where I'm surrounded by people who value integrity over greed. Where success is measured not just in dollars but in character. Where family is chosen, not assumed. Gerald will be released in 7 years. He'll be a different man. Broken, probably. Lost. I don't know if I'll see him. Don't know if I'd even want to. Diane has 4 years left. She writes letters sometimes. To Amber. To Crystal. Apologizing. Explaining. Justifying. The girls read them. Sometimes they write back. Sometimes they don't. That's their journey. Mom finished her community service last month. She asked Amber if I'd be willing to meet for coffee. I said no. Not yet. Maybe someday. But I'm not ready. And I don't owe her my readiness. The civil case wrapped up. Restitution payments come in monthly. $2,000. Every month for the next 18 years. It's not about the money anymore. It's about accountability. About consequences. About remembering that actions matter. I learned that you can lose everything and still have everything. Because what matters isn't what you own. It's who you are when the world's trying to destroy you. It's whether you stand for truth or convenience. Whether you choose integrity or expedience. My father used to say, character is what you do when no one's watching. But I learned something he didn't teach me. Character is also what you do when everyone's watching and judging you wrong. When the news calls you unstable. When your family calls you paranoid. When your girlfriend chooses money over you. When the whole world seems aligned against you. That's when character matters most. So here's what I know now. 1 year later, sitting in my office, looking at a company that survived betrayal and emerged stronger. Success doesn't protect you from pain. But integrity protects you from becoming someone you don't recognize. Family means nothing without loyalty. But loyalty means everything without family. The people who hurt you will face consequences. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not in the way you imagine. But truth has a way of surfacing. Justice has a way of finding those who run from it. And you, whoever you are listening to this, if you're facing your own betrayal, your own family war, your own moment of standing alone against people who should stand with you, hold on. Document everything. Trust the process. Believe in yourself when no one else will, because the night is darkest before dawn, and dawn always comes. That cranberry juice on my $3,000 suit? Best investment I ever made, because it showed me exactly who I was dealing with, and it showed me exactly who I am. I'm the son who honored his father's legacy, the brother who gave chances before calling police, the businessman who valued his employees, the man who stood alone rather than compromise his integrity. I'm Tyrone, and I survived my family. More than that, I thrived. So to anyone listening who's facing their own impossible situation, their own family betrayal, their own moment where everything's falling apart and you're standing alone, remember this story. Remember that justice exists, that truth matters, that integrity isn't just a word, it's a weapon. And remember that the people who try to destroy you often destroy themselves in the process. My family wanted to humiliate me in a luxury restaurant. They wanted to break me, to take everything I'd built. Instead, they freed me from obligation to people who didn't deserve it, freed me from the illusion that blood automatically means loyalty, freed me to build a real family with people who earned their place. 1 year later, I'm standing stronger than ever, and they're paying the price for their choices. That's not revenge, that's just consequences. And sometimes, consequences are the only justice you need. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone close to you? Someone who should have had your back but chose themselves instead? How did you handle it? Did you fight back or walk away? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to hear how you survived your own battles. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that standing up for yourself matters, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and realize they're not alone in their struggles. Subscribe to the channel if you want more real-life stories about overcoming impossible odds. And share this with someone who needs to hear that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. That truth eventually wins. That integrity matters. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, no matter how dark your situation feels right now, dawn is coming. Hold on. Stand strong. Trust yourself. You've got this. And so do I.